All right, let's talk about a couple of things as we get started. Again, first of all, welcome. We're really glad that you're taking the time to be part of this open forum. We're going to do a brief opening devotion and just a few comments here as we get started. Then I've got a little presentation for you to kind of give you a state of how things are going in the congregation right now, how are things going for our Trinity family, and then we're going to do Q&A. Now, a couple of things. First of all, if you have a comment that you want to make that all the participants will see, so it won't just be our panelists, but all of the participants, you can do that in the chat. So if you click on this chat button down near the bottom, you will see the chat, and then you can make comments in that chat as well. In fact, I see some people are doing that right now, like Joanne Zeman asked who could see it, and I see the Hitzmans are signing in and things like that. So that's the chat, and that's where you can make comments to all the participants and to the people that are presenting as well. If you click on the Q&A button, that's where we want you to ask your questions. So please don't ask questions in the chat. Ask questions in the Q&A. And we do have some folks that are monitoring those questions. As those questions are asked, either you'll get a typed answer or we're going to answer them out loud. So we're going to choose some of those questions to answer out loud and to talk about. We are going to, we might type you a specific answer back if it's a question that isn't for broad knowledge, but something specific that you were wondering about. There is this raise hand function in the middle there. We're not really going to use that today. That's a chance for people to raise hands if we wanted them to give it a chance to speak. And since you can use the chat or the question, we're going to just use those today. So we won't really be using that raise hand function. You can play around with that raise hand if you want, but we're not really going to be using it for anything. And then we are going to do some polls, and those polls will pop up. And in fact, I'm going to do one of those polls right now. So right now I'm going to launch this poll, and what we're asking is, you should be able to see it. It should have popped up. How many people are participating in the open forum right now? So how many people in your household right now are participating there at your location? I see a lot of people are answering. Right now we're at about 45% saying it's just me. Right around 50% saying there are 2 people. There are 4 people that have 3 people in their location. And there's actually 2 people that have 4 or more people watching at your site. Wow, nice job. That's pretty cool. Hopefully you're all in the same family. If not, you should be social distancing, right? So we're going to go ahead and leave that poll there for just a minute. Anybody else need to answer? Okay, I can then end that poll. And I can even share the results with you if you want to see those results. There they are if you wanted to see what those results were. And I'll stop sharing that. So we will have a few of those polls along the way here today as well. Now, before we do anything else, we do want to take some time to get started with some opening devotions, and I'm going to turn it over to Ken Rack, who is our governing board chair. And so Ken, why don't you take it away?
Okay, thanks, Mark. So hi, everybody. As Mark said, my name's Ken Rack. I have the privilege of serving on Trinity's governing board. And welcome to everybody. I get to lead us in a short devotion and our general welcome. I was told I have to make sure and keep it short because Pastor Mark has the ability to mute me or kick me out or whatever. So I will keep this short as we are going through this. And I just want to offer up, some things for all of us to think about and the plans and things we've got going forward. So to everyone at our extended Trinity family from all 4 of our sites, via everyone via their homes, I just want to say welcome, and I'm glad we get to spend this time together. So the purpose, as Mark said before, the purpose of today's meeting is to kind of give all of us some updates as to what's going on and some of the important things that are coming up. So, right now, we're currently living in a time when we can't gather the way we'd like to, in person. Being able to get together, greet each other with smiles and hugs and handshakes, and just spending some time physically together as a large group of believers. Now, many people are saying we are living in unprecedented times, which is kind of becoming an overused phrase. But I don't want to diminish all of the things that are happening right now. But, there's been a lot of different generations over the years that have faced all sorts of extraordinary circumstances. But here's something that I'd like you to think about. So before COVID-19 hit, how were your lives? Was everything calm and smooth, and nothing going on? Or were you busy running around from place to place, kind of stressed out because you had a lack of time and for all the things we had to get done at that period of time? So I think the difference really between, there's a number of things that play into this, but I think one of the big differences between now and then is the extent for which we're actually in control of our own schedule and plans. Now, I'm not going to call these times uncertain because God's in control at all times and in all circumstances. So can we, what can we or should we be doing when we personally can't be in control as much as what we like to be? And I propose that goes to trust, and that we have to trust in God our Father, Abba Father. So when I was spending some time trying to prepare for this, it's always, I always wind up doing things like looking things up in my concordance. So I looked up the word trust and what does that have listed? And I found out that it had 79 different references just for the word trust in the Old Testament, and there were 9 in the New Testament. But then when you expanded that to words like trusted or trustfully or trusting, there were 43 additional different references in the Old Testament and 11 in the New Testament. So there are a lot of just plain declarative statements that just plain tell us just to go ahead and trust. But, sometimes when you could just get told to do something, it doesn't make it easier for that to happen. So here's some verses that I want to offer up for you to think about, just where they're not just a declaration, but I think they show the relationship that God wants us to have and demonstrates this trust to each of us in a very personal way. So here's some of the verses. And when you're listening to these verses, what I'd like you to do is just take, when you hear the word you or us, please put your name in there, your family's names in there, your friend's name in there, because I think it'll show what, really the relationship and things that God wants to have for us in all of these times that we're in right now. So the first one's Romans 8, and it's verses 28 and then 31 to 32. And it reads, "And we know that in all things, God who works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. And what then shall we say in response to this? If God is for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for all, how will he not also, along with him, graciously give you all things?" And in Isaiah chapter 41, verses 10 and 13, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed. I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. For I am the Lord your God, who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will help you." And another one from Jeremiah chapter 29. "I know," and many of us know these verses and we heard them before. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me, and when you seek me with all your heart." So we're going to be talking about some things here today on plans and things that are going forward. But I mean, hearing these kinds of words to me is just an awesome promise that we have from God. And the last one is from Philippians chapter 1, verse 6. "I am convinced and confident of this very thing, that he who has begun this good work in you will continue to and perfect and complete it until the day of Christ Jesus." So how awesome is it? I mean, think about it, that, we're members of his church here, Trinity, that we can be an active part of trusting in what his plans are and what he's going to wind up accomplishing for all of us. And although we can't, be in the situation at a time where we can talk about things in person, and these things, but we do have this forum that we can actually go through at this time. So now to kind of shift gears a little bit and just kind of talk about, since I do have the platform for a little bit, to talk about some of the things which are coming up. So we as the governing board are your elected representatives, and we have been and continue to be in regular discussions with Pastor Mark and then the rest of the Trinity leadership team. And we're talking about all sorts of different things on a regular basis as to what's going on. So please, please reach out to any of us. Feel free to, if you've got any questions or comments or concerns. And to let you know, we've got 8 members that are elected on Trinity's governing board. And Pastor Mark, being the senior pastor, is the 9th person on the board when we wind up having meetings. And for each of the 8 people on the board, we serve for 4-year terms. And so then every year we have 2 positions that are going to be opening up, or that we have elections for 2 people in there for each of those 2 positions. And we do have some important dates coming up in regards to that I want to make you all aware of. So May 23rd and 24th, there's going to be videos that are going to be shown after our different services that will give you information for each of the 4 different candidates we've got that are going to be up for election for the board. We've got 4 great people that I know are going to wind up helping us in a lot of different ways. And then on May 30th through June 8th is when we're going to do online voting for the board members. We encourage you to use the online method. It's a quick, easy, confident way that you can get your board vote in and let us tally up all of those votes, and it's also anonymous. Now we recognize that there may be some people who may not have the option to be able to vote online, so we're looking through some options and alternatives and how that's going to wind up working. But I'd encourage you, please, if you can, do it online during that period of time. And then a couple other notes of business. On August 23rd is when we're going to have our next Open Fourm discussion and meeting. And we're going to try and do that in person if possible. Though I don't know, based on where we're at and, with the guidelines that are in the state of Illinois, I don't know if that's going to be possible. But if it is, that'll be at Trinity Green Trails at 12:30, but we're also making sure that it's going to be online, make sure that everybody can participate that way. And then September 27th is when we're going to have one of our congregation meetings with the same idea, except that's going to be, if possible, again, at Trinity Kimberly Way and at 12:30, and once again, have all of that online. So that's the end of my time. Welcome everybody. Thank you for participating and willing to take the time and interest to hear all the great things that God's doing through and with us, and that we have the chance to be able to help and just participate in some small way. Okay.
Thanks, Ken. Really appreciate you doing that. Guys, it is one of my great privileges to serve with our governing board. All of them are great servants of God and really enjoy the time that I get to work with them. As you can imagine, this has been an especially interesting time over these last couple of months working with that board, and we're really thankful for their leadership. And again, I'll just add a word to what Ken said to encourage you when you get the opportunity later this month and the beginning of June to vote, please take that seriously and get your votes in for our board. So I'm going to talk about just a few different things about how they are going, and going to talk about some stuff. And so the first thing I want to talk about is worship. How is worship going? And so let me give you some statistics or things. First of all, as you know, we are worshiping only online right now. We are averaging about 630 connections on a weekend. Let me explain what that means. That means we might have as many as 700 or 800 people connect. But one of the statistics that people tell us to keep an eye on that actually helps you understand how many people are actually engaging and not just checking your service out is to look at peak connections. So normally just a couple minutes after the service begins, we get to our peak, which is about 630 people between our 3 different services at 5, 8:30, and 10:30. And remember, we just recently added that 5 p.m. Saturday night service. We get to about 630 peak connections, which averages to about 315 people per service on Sunday morning. Saturday night's been in the 30 to 40 to 50 range of people, but on Sunday morning for each of our 2 services, we're averaging about 315 connections at peak. Now that represents a lot more people than just those connections, because in some households we have 2, 3, in some households more people actually watching, but about 315 per service. Now, as you can see, those numbers are actually a little higher than when we have physical worship in person, which is really pretty interesting. And we're hearing from people things like, Well, my teenagers normally won't come to church with us, but they'll get up and sit down and watch the service online with us and stuff. So praise God. It's interesting to see how God is using even this online circumstance for good. Now, here's another really neat statistic. The average amount of time that those 630 peak connections in a weekend are staying online is just a minute shorter than our actual service length. But which means, like, if we have a 50-minute service, it's 49 minutes is the actual time that people are online, which is really pretty amazing as you think about it. So again, talking to people at churches that have done online worship a lot longer than we have, they tell you that that statistic is pretty amazing. People are signing in for our service, and they're not just sticking around for 5-10 minutes. They're staying for the whole service, which is really encouraging. We also want our online services to have a chance to actually be engaging for people. And so one of the ways that we do that is that chat room. And the average service has about 134 different people that post in the chat room. Now, that's not number of posts. That's people, individual people that are posting in that chat room. And by the way, at every one of our services, we have people who are hosting that chat room. So they're connecting with people there in that chat room and things like that. So that's pretty exciting to have volunteers from each of our sites, each of our 4 sites doing that. This morning, it was our Green Trail site that was providing the volunteers in the chat room for worship. So that was pretty cool. Here's the other thing. We're actually having a chance to pray with people live online, and we have prayer hosts that are there to do that as well. And we're averaging about 10 live prayer sessions per service. Now think about that for a second. If at one of our regular services at one of our sites, one of our in-person worship services, as we're calling them, we had 10 different people that came up after the service for some prayer time with one of the pastors or with an usher. That would be pretty exciting. And that's about what we're seeing, about 10 live prayer sessions per service. So that's really cool. Now, what about when we can start to get back to in-person worship? And again, the reason I'm calling it in-person worship is we don't want to say that online worship isn't worship. It is. It's real worship. Even if we're not physically together, God is being praised and his word is being heard. Worship is real, even if it's through technology. But what about in-person worship? What about getting back to that as things start to change in the world around us and we're able to do that? Well, first of all, as we're putting plans together for that, we want to hear from you. And this week, in your e-news that you're going to get from your particular site that you may be at, watch for the link. There's going to be a link for you to click on, and we've got a short survey. I think it's maybe around 15 questions, just a short survey that we want to ask you to help us know what you are thinking about returning to in-person worship. How comfortable will you be when that time comes? What precautions do you think we ought to be taking, et cetera? So please watch for that survey and give us some good information. Now, we're going to use the information from that survey and all the other information that's out there, just the wealth of information from public health sources, from other churches and other church bodies that are planning. We're going to use all that to put together a phased plan for in-person worship happening again at Trinity. And we should have that done by the end of the month. We know that it's not possible before the end of this month, but our goal is by the end of May to have this in-person worship phased approach ready, and we'll get that out there and published so you know that when the state of Illinois is in phase 3, what does that mean for us at Trinity as far as in-person worship goes, or what about phase 4 and things like that. We're going to put that out there so you have so you know what's coming and can start to think about how that's going to happen for us to be back together in person for worship again. Now, by the way, there is some stuff going on now we want you to know about, like baptisms. If you have a baptism that you want to happen, you have 4 options for that. You can talk to any one of our site pastors or call the church office and find out what those 4 options are. They involve, right now, a small group maybe at your home that a pastor would come to do, or even we can do gatherings of 10 or less at church for a baptism. So we want you to understand what those options are so you can do that. we are going to continue to do communion online, in-home communion through our online worship on the first weekend of every month. So the next time we do that will be the first weekend in June. Watch out for more information about that, and want to let you know that that is available. So it's poll time. Let's do a couple of polls. And this isn't the survey. We're going to be sending the survey out in a little bit, but let's do a couple polls. And so let me put a poll out there for you. When you think about returning to in-person worship, give me some sense about, assuming we take the needed safety precautions, and how do you feel about returning to in-person worship at your site right now? Is it, I'm ready, let's go? Is it, I'm ready only if the government and health officials say it's okay? Or, you know, until there's a vaccine, I'm not going to feel comfortable. Let us know what you're thinking. Let's go ahead. We've got a number of people chiming into that poll. I see we're up to 60, 70 some people that are in there now. By the way, I think that second to the last option is supposed to say, until there's a better treatment or vaccine, I'll wait, is what it's supposed to say. I'm not quite sure why it doesn't say that. But we see those coming in. Let that sit there and run for a second. Yeah, I see about right now, as 15 of you have said, honestly, I'm not sure what to think or do. And boy, I sure understand that. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and end that poll. And there, if you're interested in seeing those results, we had 23% say, I'm ready now, let's go. We had 34% say, I'm ready only if the government and health authorities say it's okay. We had 24% say, I'm going to keep worshiping online for a while just to be safe. We had 10%, 15 of you say, until there's a better treatment or vaccine, I'm going to wait. And we had some, about 15 of you say, honestly, I'm not sure what to think. Boy, I can understand that. Let's try one more quick poll. And this is, if we could start in-person worship next weekend, but there were going to be some significant restrictions. So shorter service, social distancing, masks, no congregational singing, no communion, no coffee and donuts, spaced arrival dismissal times to minimize contact with others. In other words, this is going to be significantly different. What would you want to do? Would you say, let's wait till it can be a more normal experience? Or would you say, it's better than nothing, let's go? Give us some indication of that. So significant different experience, no singing, because they're saying singing transmits, they believe, the virus more than if you're not singing. You know, significantly altered experience. Would you rather wait, or are you saying it's better than nothing, let's just do something? And we've got about 140 some people that have answered this so far. We're going to let the poll go for just another minute or two here. And looks like, oh, there's one more response, a couple more trickling in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end that poll. As you can see right now, 81% of you said, I'd rather wait for a more normal experience. So, by the way, that's just a little sample of those questions that are going to be on that longer survey that we're going to try to get out to as many people as we can. And we're going to go ahead and do that. So please make sure that you pay attention to that and are ready for that, and give us some response on that, okay? By the way, I never did share those results so you could see them. There you go. You see what the results of that was. Again, 81% said, let's wait, and 19% said it's better than nothing. So, all right. So I'm going to go ahead and keep going on, and let's talk about some other things at Trinity. Let's talk about group life. How is group life going? Well, right now we do have a number of our small groups that are meeting through Zoom, through an experience like this online. I know the group that Betty and I are on have been doing that. We just had a group meeting on Friday night together, and it's got pros and cons, of course. We would love to be together. But for us, we had some members of our group that had moved away that are able to come back and participate in our group now and do that online. So that's been a blessing. This summer, we have groups we may be able to have some groups that actually with 10 or less people could physically meet together. It looks like in phase 3 that we're moving towards here in the state of Illinois. Groups of 10 or less can meet in people's homes, and so some groups may want to consider that option. Now, a number of you in groups that have more than 10 people, so you might need to be a little creative and that maybe have half the group meet at one house and half another house, or something like that. Keep that in mind. But of course, Zoom will still be an option, and so we want to encourage that. Our goal this fall is to have all of our groups meeting again, and we're hoping that can be in person. Our fall small group series that we're hoping all groups will be a part of is all about spiritual conversations. Everything from talking about the sermon that you just heard with your spouse to sharing your faith with your neighbor. We're going to be looking at all the different ways that we can be involved in spiritual conversations in our life. And the more of those conversations we're having, the more impact we're going to have in the lives of people around us for the gospel. And so that's going to be the focus of our fall series, having spiritual conversations. And we're going to have a special series ready for that group, for our small groups as well this fall. Finally, just an encouragement to stay connected with your small group. Even if you're not meeting right now or not able to meet, as a group leader, please make sure you're connecting with your group, and keep in touch with one another. Stay connected as best you can. As opportunities to be physically together open up, like again, in groups of 10 or fewer, things like that, please stay connected. It's so important that we're staying connected with our brothers and sisters in Christ during this time. All right, let's talk about serving caring. How is serving caring going? Well, I'm so proud of our church. We are doing some amazing things out in the community around us right now. Through our website, where we asked people who wanted to volunteer to sign up, we've had 78 different people volunteer and say, I want to help somehow. And of those, we've been able to get 68 of them actually engaged in doing something. We've had 14 requests for help through that same website. We've been able to respond to every one of those requests and get people help. That help ranges all kinds of things from, we're providing meals for some folks that was the only way they were going to be able to eat. So we've been providing meals for some. We've been getting groceries to others, people who are, for various reasons, unable to go out and do their grocery shopping on their own. Maybe the thing I'm most proud of is our team has been making about 150 calls a week to people who are at risk in our congregation or just need someone to connect with. And those calls have been happening every week, twice a week in some cases, I know. So one of the things that a lot of our volunteers have been doing is simply picking up the phone, calling some of our other members to see how they're doing, to make sure they're okay, to see if there's anything that they need for help, and really excited about that. We've also been working with the local food pantries, a couple of them, with Feed My Starving Children, and with the West Suburban Community Pantry. That's been really cool to see. We've been doing care packs for healthcare workers, and it's just been really exciting to see all those things happening. I just got a few pictures I'm throwing up right now that you may have seen on one of our social sites or things like that, of just folks from Trinity out there making a difference, either at the food pantries or helping out the healthcare workers with those care packages and things. Again, I'm just so proud of our church family. You know, our vision is that as God changes us, as he makes us more like Jesus, we have a chance to impact the community around us, to change the community around us. And your Trinity family's been doing that in a big way, and I'm just really proud of what's happening there. Another question we get a lot is, how is our church doing financially? I want to give you a little update on that. First of all, I'll let you know that our March giving was impacted. It was under budget. Now, we had a big goal for March that included things like offerings from our Wednesday night services, which, as you know, had to stop because of what was happening, and a lot of uncertainty for people. So our March giving was under budget. But the good news is that our April giving was actually at or just a little bit over budget. Now, that was due to a couple of people who made some rather large gifts that they said, we've been blessed. We've not been affected by this. We can help, and made some large gifts to help with that. but we are really thankful to see that our giving has remained strong. And I want to thank each and every one of you for that. My guess is if you are here for this open forum, you care about your church. And that means you've been doing your best financially to help support our ministry during this strange time. And we're really thankful for your support. Now, of course, we are experiencing some pretty significant losses when it comes to our Grounds for Hope Cafe, which has been closed since March now. Our Trinity Early Childhood Center, which continues to do online instruction, but obviously at a much smaller rate than we would normally do without the daycare that goes along with that. And so that's been impacted pretty significantly. Our Trinity Kimberly Way preschool closed down early at the end of the year and had to do some refunding of tuition and things like that. So as you can imagine, we are experiencing some losses in those areas, like everyone around us who has been impacted by this. Trinity was able to get through the CARES Act, a payroll protection plan loan, which turns into a grant as we use those monies for approved purposes. We're thankful that we were able to get that loan that, again, becomes a grant, and that has allowed us to keep paying our hourly workers, even if they are not able to do their normal job, because we care about those workers and wanted to support them, and that's been a real blessing, and we're very thankful that we were able to get that. By the way, if you'd like to know more about that, take a look at our online newsletter. We have a pretty detailed article about that and how that's been going for us. But again, we're thankful for that. We're also very thankful, again, to all of you who contributed to our Good Sam Fund. Our Good Sam Fund is that fund that is there for people who are in financial need. And we've had a few people that have had to step up already saying, you know, I can't make my rent or my mortgage payment. And we've been able to help there some. If you need assistance, please let us know. You can do that through the website or call the church office, and we can get you connected with our care team that administers the Good Sam Fund. What I'm really excited about is when this all first started, we put an appeal out there and we said, hey, we know the Good Sam Fund is going to need help. If you want to help financially, contribute. And we doubled the size of that Good Sam Fund in a relatively short period of time. So once again, thank you for your generosity there. Also, by the way, our Immeasurably More giving, our capital campaign, that giving has remained strong throughout this whole process and continues. People continue to keep their commitments to that, and we're thankful for that as well. Just to give you some numbers to what I just said, our year-to-date giving is about 2% below budget. That's mainly because of what happened in March, but we're actually still about 0.5% ahead of actual from last year. So again, we praise God for that. Our other revenue is where we've seen the hit, obviously 13% below budget, 54% below actual last year. And again, that's primarily in those areas of those ministries like Grounds for Hope, where we don't have any income coming in because of what's happening around us. We've been working very hard as a staff to control expenses, and we're just a little less than $100,000 under budget for the year when it comes to expenses at this point. So again, doing our best to live within our means and only do the most vital of things during this time. Here's something to be proud of. Our online giving is up to 72% of our revenue coming in. And what isn't coming in online is there's a lot of checks being sent in by folks. My wife, Betty, works in the church office, as you know, and one of her jobs during this time has been every couple of days to go in and get the mail. And she always comes home with a smile on her face because of all the people that are still continuing to faithfully send in their offerings. We thank you for that. But we have to be honest. There's a lot of uncertainty ahead. A lot of you are being affected financially. And if you are tithing, you know how that works. If you're taking 10% of your income and giving it faithfully to God's work, if that income goes down, your tithe goes down. And we get that. We understand that there's a lot of financial pressure in people's lives right now. And where things go in the future, we're just not sure. So we are doing our best to be very careful and to be good stewards with the resources that we have. Now, because of that, normally here at this May Open Forum, we would be presenting a budget for next year to you. We just can't do that right now. The future is just too uncertain. We're not sure exactly how this is all going to shake out. And so what we're going to be doing next month at our June annual congregation meeting is basically asking you, instead of approving a new budget, we're going to ask you to approve an extension of this year's budget. So the fiscal year 20 budget that normally would have ended the end of June, we're basically asking you to extend that budget for 3 months, for July, August, September, for 1 quarter. And then we will have, as Ken mentioned before, another open forum in August. Hopefully we can be together for that, but if not, we'll do it like this. But we will have another open forum in August where we will actually present the full fiscal year 21 budget to you at that point. That will give us 3 more months to have a better understanding of what's happening financially in the world around us and to our congregation, and give us a chance to give you a budget that actually we feel good about. You see, a budget is, at its best, our best guess of what we believe is going to happen. And right now, I don't even know how to guess what's going to happen. We believe we will be in a better place to make that guess in a few months. And so we will be doing that August open forum and then a September congregation meeting asking you to approve the next year's budget. So again, in June, we're not going to be bringing you a budget. We will have a congregation meeting. It will have to be online like this. But all we're going to be asking you to do at that meeting is extend the present budget for another quarter. Now, what does that mean financially? Extending for another quarter, this is based on last year's numbers. We spend normally July through September. We look for revenue of about $760,000, and our expenses would be about $810,000. Typically that first quarter of the new fiscal year, we run about a $50,000 deficit, which normally gets made up in the next quarter, that October, November, December quarter, the end of year giving. And so that's about what we're anticipating will happen this year in July, August, and September. So that's what, when we talk about an extension of the present budget, that's what the numbers look like for that. And again, to kind of share with you what Ken was saying, the congregation meeting will be June 28th. That will be online. And again, all we'll be asking you to approve at that congregation meeting is that extension of this year's budget. Again, we've planned August 23rd at Trinity Green Trails, hopefully in person, an open forum where we can give you the full budget for this next fiscal year. And then the congregation meeting to approve that and that ministry plan for the next year would be September 27th, hopefully at Trinity Kimberly Way. Again, that's our plan. All right, so I've been talking a lot, and I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen with you right now and just go back to presentation mode, and we are going to handle some of the questions and things that have been coming in over here. So I see there have been a number of questions that have already been answered. I see some folks have weighed in on some questions and like how long the presentation was going to last and some other things like that. But there are some open questions for us to take a look at right now. Mary Blake says, why think about a service on Memorial Weekend when a lot of our parishioners will be gone? Not quite sure, Mary, what you mean by that question. We are not going to have a physical service on Memorial Day. There's no way we can do an in-person service then yet, according to the guidelines that we have from the CDC, from our governor, from the state of Illinois. And so we won't have a physical in-person service. We are, of course, going to be worshiping online that weekend and have some special things planned since it's Memorial Day weekend. Panelists, who's preaching that weekend? I don't remember. Anybody remember which one of you guys is preaching Memorial Day? Maybe it's me. I don't know. Oh, Tony. I believe it. Yeah, Tony's going to be preaching Memorial Day, and I'm trying to remember who's hosting worship for that weekend. Mike is waving at me. Our Trinity South Naperville campus will be hosting. By the way, it's been really kind of exciting, hasn't it, to see each one of our sites take their turn to share their own personal style towards worship, and it's been fun seeing the different pastors preaching as well, so that's been pretty cool. Another question here is from Missy. Holly says, are there any resources that have been created? I don't have kids, so probably not fully aware, that allow kids to engage online. We actually have been doing kids online. Amanda, you want to take a minute and talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we've been doing a couple different things. We've been doing an in-home activity kit for families, one per sermon series. In addition to that, we send a weekly devotional activity for our elementary families. Our middle school and high school families have opportunities to meet online via Zoom. And then we are looking at an in-home VBS experience for families this summer, later on in July. In addition to that, there are some sites have done a couple different things. If you follow the South Naperville Facebook page, I know that Michelle does like a weekly Bible reading for some of the kids. Brenda's been doing a Wednesday night thing targeted at regularly attending Green Trails families, and Sharon has been figuring out some Sunday afternoon experiences for regularly attending Kimberly Way families.
Cool. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks for that question, Missy. Next question up in the line here is from Chris Blackwell. She says, is the spiritual conversation based on the Lutheran Hour Ministry package? The answer to that is yes, plus. Lutheran Hour Ministries, a part of our larger church body, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, has put out a wonderful book about spiritual conversations. I think it's called The Reluctant Witness, if I'm remembering the title right. Nick and Mike or Dave are both nodding their heads at me, so I remember that right. And we are using some of the resources from that series and some of the ideas and thoughts behind that series. But then there's another great book out there by a pastor by the name of Medeiros. It's entitled 42 Seconds. What they did was kind of a unique thing. They looked at the life of Jesus and they timed how long his conversations took with people in the New Testament. And amazingly, the average is 42 seconds. And yet Jesus had some incredibly insightful spiritual conversations with people in 42 seconds. So we're going to be using that book as well. That book actually has daily readings for about 6 weeks that we'll be using. We're going to encourage people to get that book. Don't get it yet. Don't spoil it. We'll do that this fall. But we'll be using that resource as well. And again, the goal is they did Lutheran Hour Ministries together with Barna. The Barna Research Group did some fascinating research that shows that 20 years ago, we had significantly more spiritual conversations in our lives than we do now. Believers. And I think we've kind of bought into this idea that there's two things you don't talk about, religion and politics, right? And even with people you know and love, we don't have those spiritual conversations as much anymore. And we think that has to change. If we're going to be, if we're going to live out our sharing value of sharing the good news of Jesus, we need to be spiritual conversations need to be a part of our daily lives, both with people we love and care about and who are also believers, and with people that aren't. And so we want to learn how to be more comfortable talking about spiritual things. Again, from what'd you think of the sermon today to, hey, do you think God's going to help you get a new job now that you're out of work? You know, that kind of stuff. And so we're looking forward to that, and we'll be doing that in this fall. Tanya has asked, have you thought about drive-in church? We have large parking lots at TKW and TGT to accommodate. We've thought about that and talked about it. Now, up until just recently, that was not possible. I know some churches were doing it, but the state of Illinois had officially said no to that. We looked at that as a possibility for Easter. We thought maybe for Easter we should try to get people together in our parking lots and broadcast the service into people's cars. And we checked with our local and state officials, and they said no. That was out of bounds. It was against the rules at that point. They've since loosened that up, and it is now possible. You probably saw the drive-in movie theater in McHenry's been able to open up, and so we're talking about that. That's one of the options that may be in that plan for how we return to in-person worship in the future. So we are looking at that and all kinds of other possibilities, and we'll continue to take a look at that as well. Another question here from the Basses. Virtual is a strong ministry in itself for the unchurched. Those who are housebound, we urge you to keep and strengthen this ministry. That's more comment than a question, but the question I think that is implied is, are you going to keep doing it? And I can tell you the answer to that is yes. One of the things that we've learned as a senior staff is that we are reaching some people that we would not reach otherwise with our online worship. And so our commitment right now is that online worship is here to stay in some form as we move forward. Now, we don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet. I mean, imagine if there was a vaccine next month and all of a sudden we could all come back to in-person worship. Now, all of a sudden you've got our sites cranking up to do worship every week again and an online service, which is going to be new. But our plan is to continue online worship in some form as we move forward. Another question here from Jan. Do our mission partners need help in excess of what we've currently budgeted? That's another great question. And fortunately, right now, we have been able to keep sending that portion of every dollar we receive to our mission partners. And we are very proud of that. We're excited about the fact that we are continuing to work with those mission partners. One of our new mission partners that we'll be talking about more in the weeks to come is going to be part of our new ministry plan is Mission India. We're excited that we're able to start helping there because the need in India is dire right now. We're in contact with our mission partners, and I can tell you that if we find specific areas of need beyond what we're already doing to support them, we will let you know, and we will do our best as a church to respond. The Martins have asked, have we thought about doing something special for high school and college seniors this year? Kind of tough for them not being able to celebrate the way they normally would. I'm going to throw that one to Amanda again to answer because we have been doing some things, right, Amanda?
Yes, but it's kind of a surprise.
Oh, there's some surprises. Oh, okay. I'm glad I didn't just start answering that question yet. That would have been bad.
There is going to be an experience where some of the counselors are going to be doing a little stop by social distance appropriate thing. Craig Larson is going to be sending a communication to families that are on our list. However, if you think you might not be on our list, feel free to reach out to me and or Craig just to make sure that you are. And we want to make sure to recognize your child appropriately.
Cool. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks for asking that. Jenny asks, will kids ministry in-person activities follow school district's example? So once we're able to begin to do in-person ministry, we will, of course, need to do that in a way that is safe for everyone. And one of the things, there's some conflicting information out there right now. On one hand, we're hearing from some sources that kids are much less likely to pass the virus on to others. But by the same token, we also know that social distancing kids, especially the younger they get, just isn't possible, right? How do you tell some 4-year-olds, no, 6 feet apart, don't touch your face, you know? I mean, it's just not going to happen. And so we know that that's going to be a challenge in a unique way. Again, Amanda, do you have something you want to add there?
We are working on it. We're putting together a plan phase by phase as we start to transition back of what that might look like at the different levels and at the different sites, because that may be different as well, given the facilities that are provided. And to nod on what Mark said, it will probably take longer to get back to more in person with the younger kids, just because of their inability to truly social distance and follow some of the expectations. We want to make sure that both the kids and the volunteers are safe in whatever setting we're able to provide as we roll things back out.
Cool. Thanks, Amanda. Next question I have here is, does the financial picture you presented reflect the additional PPP loan funds? I'm going to ask Sally to weigh in a little bit here on that. I know that the numbers I shared with you as far as our income and revenue over and against last year those numbers did not include the PPP loan funds. But Sally, maybe you can say a little bit about how we're accounting for those funds and how we're going to show those funds on financial reports.
Yeah, and what Mark said is true. So those numbers he gave you did not include any of the funds from the PPP loan. And so right now, we are keeping that as a loan on the books, and we have to document that we use it for the only things that the loan allows for: payroll cost and some mortgage interest and rent and utilities. So right now we're just tracking those. We will have to apply for the loan to be forgivable the same way we had to apply to receive the funds. 8 weeks after we received it, which was April 15th, we will apply for the loan to be forgiven. And at that time, when we know that it's 100% forgivable, then we will move it into income. But the numbers that we showed already for the next quarter of the budget are just strictly what will come in through our own giving and what we'll spend on expenses.
Perfect. Thanks, Sally. And again, just to make sure you're clear on this, the PPP loan came through the Government CARES Act. By the way, huge thank you to Sally and her accounting team and our financial team for all their hard work to make that happen. They scrambled and worked hard. And I even remember one evening I was texting Sally about getting signatures on something because we did not want to miss out on those funds that were available. And as you know, those funds were only available for a short time and ran out fairly fast. Now they since have refunded that, but we weren't, there was no guarantee they were going to add more funds to that. So we wanted to make sure our church family was a part of it, and Sally and her team worked incredibly hard. We're very thankful for their work on that. Once we have those funds, which we do, we have to spend them for payroll, for our leases, for benefit costs, utilities, those kinds of things. And as long as we spend them for those things, those funds will be, that loan will be forgiven. It converts to a grant. And as Sally said, that process happens a little later. Once that's done, once those funds have been converted into a grant, then they'll show up as income on our statements. But as of right now, they're not included in those numbers.
Mark,
okay. Go ahead, please. Yep, please.
One other thing, the other piece that's very important to make it forgivable is that we keep the same amount of employees on our payroll from this year compared to last year. That's the whole purpose of the PPP loan, was to keep people employed and payroll dollars used to keep those staff on your payroll. And so that truly is the reason that we have been able to do that, to keep all the hourly people on our payroll and all the staff at 100% because of that loan. And so it's really important piece of it to document that and make it forgivable.
And one of the cool things, by the way, to be able to keep those hourly staff employed is, first of all, we care about our staff. And so it's been a blessing that we've been able to do that. But we've also been able to utilize some of their time then, because they're still employed. For example, I know at the Tech, a number of the teachers that were part-time who weren't going to be able to be involved to continue connect with families are now able to be involved. Right, Mike? That's going on. You want to weigh in for a second on that, Mike, and talk about the Tech a little bit? And
absolutely.
What they're doing?
Yeah, Cassie and her team have done a complete switch to online teaching and ministry, and just everything from daily instruction to just time with the kids is all online. And we continue to have, a good size of our normal roster that stayed with us, or if they've disenrolled because of COVID, they intend to come back and have verbalized that to us. So big shout out to Cassie and her team for that work.
Thanks, Mike. And we've also been able to utilize some of the custodial staff, again, that aren't cleaning the buildings because they're not being used, but to do some special projects, again, safely, social distancing, all those kinds of things. But for example, Tony, I was over at Green Trails to film the sermon for this week, and the carpet in there is brand new. It looks amazing. So Tony had some knee surgery this week, so I'm not sure he's been over there to see it. Have you? Have you seen the new carpet, Tony?
I have. I haven't seen it completed yet, but thanks to Lee Bailey and Bob Trudeau and their teams, we had one of our members at Green Trails, Greg Walker, and his family they actually last winter donated thousands of square feet of carpeting that was stored at Borman's moving and storage. And during this time, we thought, what a better way to spend this time than to replace the carpet. And so we know that all that carpet that was in storage at Borman's wasn't affected by the COVID virus. So we've got clean carpet in our space when we come back. So yeah, that's good.
Pretty cool. Thanks, Tony. There aren't any more questions in there. So if you have another question, throw it in there. If not, we'll stop here in just a minute. But just a couple other things since we have time. Nick, I know that one of the things that will be starting up new in the fall in some way at Kimberly Way is a kind of a reopening of the preschool there under a new director. You want to take a minute to just say something about that?
So we have hired a new director. Her name is Ingrid Johnson. And if you're at TKW, you've been hearing a little bit about that by our e-news. We're really excited. Ingrid is working really hard on things like enrollment, putting out some marketing to let people know about it. We will be enrolling 3s and 4s classrooms. Right now we're opening up AM options, and we're doing multiple options that are flexible for families' schedules, which we're really, really, really excited about. So if you know of anyone who's looking for preschool care for their child, we would love to have them be a part of our school. We've been also interviewing for another teacher to join Ingrid on staff. And right now our plan is we're hoping that we'll be open in the fall. Next week, both she and I are going to be in some training with other schools affiliated with churches around the country, doing some scenario planning, so that if things should change, that we actually have a plan in place so that we can be adaptable and ready to do that. So I'm actually hoping we'll have even more details following next week about what various things we'll be doing in order to pivot if we need to. But we're really excited for this new season for our preschool, and looking forward to not only having kids in the fall, but being on a track to increase offerings, increase enrollment, start to have new options available. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me, or you can reach out to Ingrid. She is more than happy to address your questions and concerns.
Thanks, Nick. While Nick was talking, I got a message from our Grounds for Hope director, Melanie Lohmeyer, and she wanted to make sure that you all knew that a number of folks from the Grounds for Hope staff have been making sure coffee gets to our first responders and police officers over this time. And so we're really excited about that too. Just another way we're making a difference and using the things that God has given us to make a difference during this time. That's really cool. A couple more questions have come in. Jeff asks, the 3 dioceses in the Chicago area, the Roman Catholic Archdiocese, are planning to reopen May 29th. I'm told they're working on with the Illinois government. Do you know anything about this? Yes, I have read through the whole plan that they have in place. We're using their plan as one example to help us as we work through our plan. When they say open up, what they're talking about, by the way, is still 10 people or less. From a Roman Catholic perspective, they will even do a service with only the priest up in front of the room. We don't do that. We look at that a little differently theologically. If there aren't people gathered there to worship with that priest who's leading it, we would say, should we really be doing it? But they are looking at much smaller services and a little different theological approach than we would, but we are looking at that and all the different information out there to help us decide what that phased plan is. Another question from Craig and Darlene: once we reach phase 4, I assume they're talking about the Illinois phases, Illinois phase 4, can we gather groups? We can gather groups of 50 or less. Any consideration of holding extra services each week to accommodate in-person services during phase 4? And again, the answer to that is yes. That is one of the things we're looking at. Now, when you think about that, let's think about the implications. The scary thing is that means no more than 50 people until we're phase 5, which is vaccine or effective treatment, which means probably not this calendar year. So the thought of 200 people in the worship center at Green Trails or Kimberly Way, again, is probably not going to happen until next year sometime. And that's kind of a sobering thought. But we are looking at what could we do with 50 or less people in a room. For example, at South Naperville, they have an additional problem. Their worship space is at the local public school. And right now, we have no idea when the local public school is going to let outside groups in, even if they open for school again. So we're looking at other space options for South Naperville. At Galewood, we have the space there, and we could probably do maybe 3 services on a weekend, Dave, and you could probably get to the same number of people you normally do. That might be an option. Do you want to say anything about that, Dave?
Yeah, I feel like you gave me the toughest one. So
sorry.
Yeah, I mean, really, we just want to be cautious in the process here, and knowing that collectively as a team, we want to also not live in fear as well. So keeping these things in balance is important for us, and that's going to be a decision that we're all praying about. I think that's why we really want this survey to be filled out. That'll be coming out this next week, and we'd love your feedback on that. And we want to move forward wisely in this process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Dave said that well. By the way, hey, Dave, before you're done, just after school program, that's still going to happen this summer? What's the plan there?
Yeah, so for the last 3, this will be the 3rd summer that we have one summer Chicago program at the church. This year it's going to be all digital. And so we're still figuring that out, where 20 kids from the neighborhood will be employed and be learning some job skills and such things like that, 14 and 15-year-old kids. So it's happening, but it's going to be a lot different. So we're excited about it still happening and moving forward.
Cool. Thanks, Dave. You know, one last thing on that 50 or less worship question. There is one other option out there, and that is that a number of churches have been asking the governor's office. In fact, I know there was a group of church leaders meeting with the governor's folks coming up this next week to say 50 or less impacts us differently than some other places. And so the question is, if we are social distancing, if we are putting proper procedures in place, whatever we agree those are, could you bend on that 50 or less for larger worship spaces? For example, I'm pretty confident at our Kimberly Way location, we could get more than 50 people properly social distanced in that worship space and be safe. And so there's some dialogue going on there. There is a possibility that we might be able to have an exception within one of those phases that would allow groups larger than 50 as long as certain guidelines were met. And we're going to continue to monitor that and keep an eye on that. I'll be honest, there is also the possibility that if some point our government says you can't, but we believe it's God-pleasing to, we'll have to face that question. Will we as a church and as a church family, and we wouldn't do that in isolation, we would do that with other churches as well. Is it time for us to step up and say, no, we believe you're really being too strict here and religion is being restricted as a result, and we have to make some decisions about that. Again, weighing all those factors involved. So another question here, Lori's asked, is it possible social distance in groups of 10 or less on Trinity grounds for small groups at one or ones of the other this summer if we bring our own chairs, etc.? We are talking about that as a possibility. One of the things we know about is outdoor is better. So once the state of Illinois allows groups of 10 or less to gather together, again, we're hoping that could be as early as in June. Having some options for how you could do that in small groups are definitely something that we're going to be thinking about and trying to get out there for you. Question is, are you going to be able to collate the survey responses by location? I don't think we planned on that. Oh, Dave's telling us we will. Yep. So Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the questions that the survey asks at the end is, what location do you attend? So.
Oh, perfect. Great. Great. And by the way, we do know based on how you registered for today, what sites were represented today as well. And so we're glad to do that. Next question is, could we have more services? And again, the answer to that is, yeah, that is one of the things that we're entertaining. Now, at Green Trails or Kimberly Way, to get all the people that would normally worship there on a weekend, socially distanced in groups of less than 50 would take 10 or more services at those locations. That's probably not doable. You probably wouldn't want to come to worship at, 9:30 on Saturday night or 6 a.m. on Sunday morning to make that possible. But we are looking, once in-person worship is possible, at adding more worship times as one of the options to get people to be able to get together physically for worship. Let me just add one other thing to that, though. I've been amazed at how great online worship has been. Yes, we're not physically together, but that doesn't mean that God isn't being praised, and that doesn't mean that we aren't being fed by his word. And in fact, I've even heard from some people that because of the kind of special way we did the Lord's Supper, it made them think about the Lord's Supper in ways they hadn't for a long time, and it was very meaningful to them. And so, while in-person worship is always going to be the goal, and we can't wait to be able to be physically together again, I don't want to discount what's happening right now as if this somehow doesn't count, or that it's dramatically less. It's been amazing how great, for me at least, online worship has been, and it helps that I can have my cup of coffee and a sweatshirt on while I'm sitting here watching as well. So any
Mark,
of our panelists, go ahead, Dick, please.
Yeah, I just want to dovetail on that and say one of the of our members, some of you, is that actually it's gotten easier to worship because we're online. Hearing stories about you all sharing the link via social media, inviting family and friends, even those who are states away, to join you in worship, and then the conversations that have started to happen as a result of that. I just want to say thank you. thank you for using this time and this season and this opportunity to reach out to them and to invite them to get connected in kind of a new way. And so I would say, it's just a word of gratitude, I guess, for you all, finding unique ways, even at this time, to see the mission of God go forward. So, and from our end, it's kind of seeing those numbers and hearing some of those stories is really exciting and really inspiring. So I just want to say, keep it up.
Yeah, and again, just let me dovetail on what Nick just said. You know, we're hearing story after story of people who are saying things like, you know, my teenage son hasn't been to worship in 2 years. He's been watching every week with us, you know, that kind of stuff. So that's been really kind of cool. Another question is, can you tell us about attendance at this meeting? This is probably the biggest open forum we've had in a long time, because right now we have 170 participants as I speak right now. And we know from the poll we took earlier that in a lot of households, those participants actually represent 2 or more people that are online. My guess is we're somewhere in the 250 to 300 range for people at an open forum. And again, that's the biggest one we've had in a long time. So that's pretty exciting. Another question from Don, will you be cleaning between services? Yes, if we have worship services in person, one of the things that we will be doing is we will be having someone sanitize the space in between. That's going to be a must for that to happen. Question, if we make decisions regarding God-pleasing options that are contrary to governmental advice, how liable is Trinity? That will be one of the things we will have to weigh. And we'll certainly be talking to our insurance company about things like that. I can tell you, our goal would be to listen to our governmental authorities. I mean, Scripture says that in Romans chapter 14, that we're to obey those that are over us. By the same token, if they insist on us doing something that is contrary to God's will, then we need to rethink that. And we will do that incredibly carefully if that moment comes. Again, I'm hoping that moment never comes. We believe that working with our government authorities, we're going to be in a position where we can make God-pleasing decisions there and move forward together with our government authorities. Question here says, one of the benefits of online worship has been a chance to experience some of the talents of musicians at other services. Is there any thought about how to experience their talents once we go back to worshiping at specific locations? Sure. Go worship at one of our other locations. I mean, that's kind of a flip answer. I'm sorry, but seriously, one of the blessings is, you know, you can very easily, anytime you want, try worship at one of our other locations. In fact, I know our site pastors welcome that, and I know some of our folks that have done that have said, "Hey, you know, we went to Trinity South Naperville. We had never been there before. It was a great experience," and so that'll be always be an option for you. Another answer or another question here, what are the greatest or most pressing needs of the church or the church staff during this time, or what needs are you forecasting? I would say, first of all, the greatest need for our staff or church family right now is for your prayer. And, you know, sometimes when we say something like that, people go, oh, well, come on, pray, really? Honestly, prayer is effective. We believe that. And I know when someone comes up to me and says, hey, Pastor, and I've had this happen numerous times over these last few weeks, this last month and a half, in emails, in text messages. I've had people say to me, Pastor Mark, we are praying for you and for the staff right now. That means the world to us. So thank you for those prayers. And we're just blessed to be able to serve. I would say the most pressing need for our church family now continues to be to keep giving faithfully so that we can continue doing the work that God has called us to do. And if you want to volunteer and actually do something, don't forget, go to our Trinity website, tlc4u.org, go to that COVID-19 page. At the top, you can volunteer. Our care folks are working really hard and would love to have your help there as well.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
So I just want to, since we have, 170 people right now that are currently on, I just want to let everybody know how blessed we are to have Mark, who's there, and Dave, who's there, and Tony, who's on the other side of him, and Nick, and Mike, and Amanda, and Sally, and wherever they are on your screens. But not only everybody that's on right now, but the rest of our staff, how blessed we are to have all these people. I talk with friends at other churches. they weren't as proactive, and they're not looking to try and keep people engaged in as many ways as what we are right now. So we, as members of Trinity, are lucky to have all of you helping and guiding and leading us through all these things. It's a blessing. It's great. Please keep doing it. It means a lot to all of us. And for those of us that get to see a little bit behind the scenes for all this stuff that's going on, these folks have been really busy, and I just want to say thanks.
Thanks, Ken. A couple more quick questions. And one of the questions is, we love all Trinity is doing. Would you consider children's sermon during the service? We have tried to have elements in services that particularly appealing to children. For example, the reading of the Easter story by a child in the service on Easter Sunday, things like that. We continue to talk about elements that we can have. Children's sermons are a little interesting. One of the things I found is sometimes the adults get more out of children's sermons than the kids do, and so they have to be done well. But continue to have some sort of elements in the service for kids. I believe that is on our radar screen, and we continue to do that. Louise says, this is the first time I've been able to attend an open forum. I hope this format's considered again in the future, post-COVID-19. Again, we're learning things, and maybe some sort of webinar or this in conjunction with or in addition to an in-person open forum might well be a possibility. I'm going to go ahead and pray and kind of wrap this up, but I'm willing to stay here and keep answering questions if people have questions they want to keep throwing in the Q&A. So let's, first of all, thank you for your time today. Thank you for your faithful participation in all that we do as a church family. Thank you to all of you that are serving and making a difference. Thank you for all the different ways that you are making a difference in the community around you. And I just want to thank you for being a part of our church family. Especially, I want to thank the staff too. They are amazing to work with. And I have not seen them personally in a long time, but I've seen them on Zoom a lot, and that has been a blessing as well. I'm so privileged to serve with each of them. Let's bow our heads and let's pray. Lord God, you are the God of the church, and we heard today in worship some of the amazing promises that you've made to us. That if anyone is in Christ, they're a new creation. The old life is gone and a new life has come. And Lord, those kind of promises, those ideas of new life and health, can be hard to cling to during the circumstances we're in. Lord, I pray for each and every member of our church family and for each and every member in the communities around us. Lord, I pray that you would give them hope and healing and courage and strength. I thank you for our church family and the blessing it is to be a part of it, and pray you'd continue to work mightily in and through us as we seek to help people be more like you, more like Jesus every day, as we help them look, live, and love more like Jesus. And then as we live more like Jesus in our daily lives, change the world around us. Lord, thank you for that. I pray your blessing. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So thanks again for being on. Again, if you want to ask any more questions, I'll keep answering questions here. Thanks to our panelists. You guys want to jump out, feel free. You're welcome to do that. God's blessings to all of you. I do see another question in here about Purell in each pew. It's another thing we're looking at. Finding Purell for each pew might be a challenge these days, but seriously, having hand sanitizer and things available, those are all things that we will do when in-person worship is possible again. I'm not seeing any more questions. So again, thanks to all of you. God's blessings. Have a great day, everyone. Oh, and this, we have taped this, and this will be available online. So if you know someone that wasn't able to be here today and they'd like to watch this, they can go back. That's going to be available. So Dave, did you want to say something, or were you just kind of waving? He was just waving. So, okay. All right. God's blessing, everybody. We'll see you.